Kendall Burton. Our guest tonight is the Senior Field Social Worker in the Department of Human Services, Antoinette Joseph. We're talking about some of the social issues affecting the country, and we're taking your calls. You can call us here to share your comments, your questions. You can direct them at our guest tonight. We were talking about domestic violence, and you touched on it earlier, but we have another call. Let's take that call and we'll come back. Hi, good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Miss, I'm fine, thank you. Miss Joseph, a question for you. Age of consent is 16 years, right? Is it legal that a 16-year-old can be intimate and live with his or her partner, with the mother-in-law?
Did you hear that question? She's asking if a 16-year-old
Thank you.
can consent to sexual intercourse or to have a relationship with an individual living with her mother-in-law, quote-unquote mother-in-law.
If it's 16.
Is there a legal age of consent in St. Lucia?
16?
16.
And
Okay.
that's one of the difficulties we have.
What is that difficulty?
Whenever the teenager knows that they're going to turn 16 years, I mean, they always tell us, we can't touch him or anything like that. That's one of our challenges.
Okay, we have another call? No, we don't. Okay, so I think what the question she's asking, so once that person is 16, she can basically engage.
Well, yes, basically, but that doesn't mean if...
So she's not doing anything illegal or anything wrong?
No, but...
I think that's what the caller was basically
I guess
asking.
so, yes.
Okay. So is that a good or bad thing? Is that something that needs to change? What are some of the detriments or disadvantages of becoming sexually involved or active too early? Or what is too early to become sexually active?
Well, I can't say what is too early, but however, in terms
but
of...
are they psychological and physical
well, yes,
effects?
if
Yes.
you
What
look
are they?
at, sometimes the young body is not even fully mature, and even emotionally and psychologically, how do they actually deal with all of that in terms of, really understanding, what they get into. And we also have to look at the aspect of STIs, and also domestic violence too, because it's not always limited to older persons in terms of older persons in relationship, but young people actually go for DV2, domestic violence. Sometimes they decide to go in a relationship so early, and they are really exposed to a lot of trauma, emotional and psychological abuse, and also physical too.
Now, that takes me back to my earlier question, something that you touched on, where you encounter cases of domestic violence, but the victim withdraws.
A case.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's another.
It's a common problem.
And frustrating too.
Right.
The reason why I say frustrating because most times there are children involved, and they actually relieve that cycle of domestic violence with the parents.
But is there any move to change legislation and make adjustments so that even if the victim does decide that maybe the police or the courts can proceed anyway?
I'm not too sure about that because that's an adult. But in terms of the children, like I say, we can work towards removing the children from that abusive home.
Okay, we have another call. Let's take that call and we continue. Hi, good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to ask Ms. Joseph, I joined the program a bit late. I'm not sure if you've gone over this, but what is the alternative the department is presenting women? The alternative to prostitution, that would be, because if a woman who is finding herself in dire economic straits, and we consider that as why women do engage in prostitution, then what is the alternative the department is presenting these women if a woman were to walk in and say, well, I want to leave this profession that I am engaged in?
Okay, did you get the question? Okay, she's asking what alternatives can the department offer to somebody who is engaged in prostitution or sexual work or sex work and who wants to leave but comes to you for assistance?
What alternative?
Yes.
Okay, like I mentioned earlier on, in terms of counseling, and also in terms of employment for that person, or getting the person into a program to be trained. The program is actually free, the National Skills Training Program. We have a center in Beaufort. Not too long ago, I believe a year ago, they opened a big center. And there's also in La Pointe Monaco, if the person does not live in Castries. We have the center at Bizet. And the person is free to come to us to see how best we can work with the individual or individuals in terms of rehabilitation. Because all is not lost.
Good. All right, but although it does still seem as a sort of piecemeal thing, because if you have a woman who probably has 3 children to feed, house rent and bills and everything, doing a little skills training thing at the NSDC certainly doesn't cut it, because to my mind, the NSDC is more tailored for younger folk who probably have left school when they want to get a complete skill set. But that aside, to me, in some ways, we're almost spinning top in mud, because of someone called asking about the age of consent, and your reply was that there's basically nothing that you can do. If a young girl at age 16 wants to live in a house with a man, then she can do that because she's at the age of consent. So I'm just wondering, at what point then is the department holding the dialogue about changing this age of consent? In other Caribbean islands, that debate has been broached. I believe in Ghana, there's a heated debate about that, and some movement in that direction to change the age of consent. So what is you, considering the fact that you are in the belly of the beast, so to speak, what is it that your department is doing to aggressively lobby, whether it be the minister to get to the cabinet and to address this problem?
Well, Ms. Joseph was actually attempting to answer that very question when you called. She's asking about the age of consent, and she's having difficulty hearing you call her, so I have to convey your sentiments to her. The caller is asking about the age of consent, and the earlier caller who alluded to a 16-year-old living in a house. She's asking, what pressure are you bringing to bear on cabinet or any other authority to have adjustments made? Yes, because similar attempts are being made in other Caribbean islands.
I did speak to the review of the legislation with OECS, so I'm not certain if the age of consent is part of it. I could probably do my research on that.
Okay. And I just have a final question. Don't want to dominate, but final question.
Okay, caller.
Recently, St. Lucia was featured in the U.S. Human in Trafficking Persons Report as a country where prostitution or at least women were forced into sex work. So I would think that would be a concern for your department, because it would seem that if you have a sort of organized system for sex work in St. Lucia, and that women are being forced into it, especially women from neighboring Caribbean islands, the Dominican Republic and so forth, that is then definitely a larger problem for the local authorities in getting a handle on prostitution, if they would want to do so. So how is the department tackling that? And it would seem by some of the responses, just let me make an observation, comment, by the responses by Ms. Joseph, it would seem that the department is basically a toothless tiger, and just really, trying to catch on to straws to prevent it from drowning. And if the department doesn't seem to have the wherewithal to get a grip on what the situation is, then what's the point of even discussing those issues? Because around this time next year we'll come back and we'll be saying the same thing. Right. So I would really rather hear something concrete, and that the department can have some degree of autonomy to move in and do things, or that it has the ability and the backing to really lobby government to make the necessary changes. So my contribution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for calling. I know you got the second part, but is that a fair assessment, Toothless Tiger?
What can I say?
Okay, the first part of the question referred to St. Lucia's involvement on naming in a report on human trafficking. It is an issue not just for the international community, but something that's affecting the region as well. Not too long ago, we had an incident in Barbados where a ring was brought down by the police there who were trafficking in Dominicans. What is being done locally to address this issue? I know there was some talk about establishing a hotline a while back. Has that hotline been established? No, it hasn't. So what is being done in terms of addressing human trafficking on the island?
I mean, if I can recall, they have... Oops.
1 second, we have a call. Let's take that call and we'll come back to the discussion on human trafficking. Good evening, caller. You're on the air. Hello? Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Okay. I'm just calling to sympathize with the last caller there, because she called the department a toothless tiger. I'm not even understanding how it has graduated to tiger status. The department does absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing. Okay? I can recall an instance some years ago where a child of 16 years was given 4 children to take care of. 4 by that department. Okay? And the reason we got to know about it was that their house got burnt. And when we called, she was at her workplace. When we called the department, up to today, the department never went to visit that site.
Wait, you're saying that?
But that child's mother had died.
Wait, let's clarify one thing.
4 or 6 siblings, and this 16-year-old was burdened with 4 siblings. The department has done absolutely nothing. What I would like to ask the lady is whether they have ever undertaken any survey to determine the extent to which any social issue affects life in St. Lucia. Just one survey.
Did you get that, Mr. Clark?
I got the
Okay.
question.
He's suggesting at the beginning that you somehow were responsible for burdening a 16-year-old with 4 children. I was trying to get some clarification from him.
I'm not aware of that case.
But under what circumstances would a 16-year-old have 4 siblings and the department be aware of it? What steps would normally be taken in a case like that?
Okay, in a case like that, like I said to you,
you're aware of it.
I'm not. Oh, well, if we're aware of it, I mean, we do the necessary investigation and we do remove children, and not just on our own, but we do go through the family court to do a child protection and place a child in safe homes. And we do have the transit home, and we do have a foster care and adoption program. So the caller who said about a 16-year-old having 4 children to care for, maybe he may choose to come to the department in person to make the report and let us know where that 16-year-old is.
Okay, we're due for another commercial break. We'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Antoinette Joseph, the Senior Field Officer, Senior Field Social Worker with the Department of Human Services. Okay, let's take a call first, and then we'll go to that commercial break. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to get... Sorry. I just wanted to get back... What the heck?
Okay, caller, you need to turn down the volume of your television.
The same issue there.
The
records are there, you know. The records are there. All she has to do is to go and look it up. Okay? The child's mother was dead. There were about 7 children there. And the 16-year-old was burdened with 4 siblings.
Okay, well, caller...
At the same time, I would also like to know whether her department has ever undertaken a survey to determine the extent to which any of the social issues affect.
Okay, we'll address the issue of the survey, but...
are doing absolutely nothing.
We will address the issue of the survey, but she has recommended that if you are aware of a 16-year-old who has been burdened with responsibility for 4 or more siblings, that you should contact the department. Apparently she's not aware of it, so if you are aware of such a case existing, you should contact the department and ensure that they'll ensure, I'm sure, that something is done to address that situation. Fair enough? Okay.
Yeah, there was the officer in charge at that time was somebody called Cox.
Okay, all right, but contact the department in the morning and ask to speak to Ms. Joseph directly.
These people are doing absolutely nothing. Trust me.
Yeah, but okay, I'm asking you to do something now. Okay. So we'll take a commercial break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Ms. Antoinette Joseph, the Senior Field Social Worker in the Department of Human Services. We'll be right back. You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS.